to come in and do them face-to-face, use these webinars to start training the board if that's something that you need. So we will get started. We are today going over Ask and You Shall Receive. And this presentation, just so you know, is being recorded. And the recording slides can be emailed to you upon request. If you're on my mailing list, I will email this out to the mailing list. You can chat any questions that you have in the chat, but I won't be answering them into the end in a formal Q&A because I'm one person. I get distracted by the chat. So hopefully also if given the opportunity, you can come on and ask your questions. So a little bit about me. So I studied political science and public administration, and I obtained a nonprofit management certification from Harvard Business School. And for the last 25 years, I worked in the nonprofit industry. I've worked in direct services, operations, and executive leadership. And in 2018, I was diagnosed with cancer, and I felt I needed to retire. And since then, I've been helping people take their nonprofits to the next level. And some might ask, well, why do you put the cancer thing in there? Well, I put it in there because that is the reason why I started my company, Supporting World Hope, really is to support nonprofit professionals and CEOs in particular, because it can be stressful. And the cancers that I got was directly related to stress. And so I created this company so that you won't get stressed out and you find some balance. And the things that I've learned over the 25 years, I can share with you to eliminate some of that stress. So that was the impetus for me starting my company. So what I do is I do workshops, I do board retreats, webinars, coaching, and consulting. And today the PowerPoint will benefit nonprofit CEOs who wants to engage their board in fundraising, nonprofit chairs who want to inspire their board to fundraise, and really anyone looking to enhance their fundraising experience. And so the goal of this webinar is to change the fundraising mindset, because sometimes it is about the mindset. We're also trying to understand the methodology of the fundraising ask, and we want to know how you can support fundraising. And so that is the goal of this webinar today. So the first thing that I want to say is that asking is a privilege. You're offering people the opportunity to make an impact that aligns with their values. So a lot of people have this fear of asking people. And when you take that and say, you know what, this is if you're in a nonprofit world, first of all, you have to get over that fear. That's one. That's because that's what you do. And then the next thing you have to realize is that you're offering people the opportunity to make an impact that aligns with their values. This is, people have their hard-earned money, and they want to make a difference. And what your job is to make sure that you present your nonprofit in a way that aligns with their values, because people want to give back. It makes people happy to give. There's actually studies out there that says that your brain chemistry changes when you give. So you're actually doing them a service, and it is a privilege to be able to ask people to support your nonprofit. And that leads into that it's not about you. It really is not about you. You have to get over that fear of the ask. If you don't, you will not succeed in this business that we call a nonprofit. So when you go in, or when you're looking at a prospective donor, or when you're going to make that ask, you have to remember that it's not about you. You have to remember that you are offering this donor an opportunity to make an investment that is going to make them happy, an investment that's going to change their brain chemistry, an investment that there's even studies that say people who give live longer. So you're expanding their life cycle. It is not about you. And the other thing that I say around it is not about you is it is not, when you go in to make that ask, it is not about the great things that your organization does. You really have to speak to the donor, and you really have to align with what the donor wants. So the other thing that people do when it's time to make the ask, they make these excuses about, well, you know, it's not a good time. They try to say you can't, they try to say, well, I know this person is just not a good time for them right now. And so you can't say no for the donor. It's just an excuse. And you have to stop making those excuses. I've heard board members and staff, and I've heard this many a times. It's not a good time. She's going through chemo right now. Or it's not a good time to ask. He just became a widower. Or it's not a good time to ask because she just lost her job. Or they have kids going to college. Or he just got home from the hospital. You know what? You can't treat donors like they can't think for themselves. People are perfectly capable of saying no on their own behalf. Trust me, from someone who was going through chemo, if a nonprofit would have asked me at that time, I probably would have given, because you are going through chemo and you want to leave a legacy and you want to support and you want to impact. And so technically that probably would have been a perfect time to ask me for a gift. So you just can't say no for donors. So don't let your board or yourself use that as an excuse, because we do tend to come up with these excuses. And whatever you do, you cannot do cold calls. The key to fundraising is building relationships. It is all about building relationships. So by the time that you get to making the ask, you should have a relationship with the people that you're asking from. So whatever you do, do not make a cold call. So you have to cultivate people. And the number one, the way that you cultivate people is you have to set up meetings with them. There's top 6 ways that you can cultivate people. So you set up a meeting with them, because face-to-face still reign kings. And I know that during this COVID time, people are saying, well, how do I set up a face-to-face meeting? Well, we're doing face-to-face right now, believe it or not. You can use Zoom to set up a face-to-face meeting. And if that doesn't feel comfortable with you in starting a relationship, pick up the phone and call people. You know what? You could, and then you go, well, what do I say? They're strangers to me. Well, if you pick up the phone and you say, you know, my name is Sabrina, and I wanted to see if we could talk about my organization and just let you know a little bit about what we're doing. I know that you haven't heard a lot about us, so I just wanted to make that call and reach out to you. Or you can say, my name is Sabrina, and we're doing a tour, and I'm trying a tour of our alumni. And so I'm just really trying to get input on why you would potentially support our program, or feedback about what you have done since an alumni. But you're just trying to start that conversation and trying to start to build that relationship. The other thing that you could do is newsletters and communication. E-newsletters, building your your list, whether you're using MailChimp, Constant Contact, ConvertKit. There are so many platforms out there that you can use. MailChimp is free for the first 2,500 subscribers. ConvertKit now is free for the first 1,000 subscribers. So there's a lot of ways that you can use e-newsletters and other communication. And I will say, as a CEO, that was probably one of the bigger mistakes that I made. I did not really utilize my newsletter list or build that list. And now I can see where it's very important to create that funnel, because if you're not communicating on a monthly basis, letting people know what's going on, and the only time you communicate is when you're trying to make an ask, they're really not going to respond to that. The other thing that you can do is events. Of course, this is post, when COVID is over, make sure that you invite people into events. And when I think of events on this one, I'm talking about program events. So let's say if I'm from a youth development background. So one of the things that I used to cultivate relationships was I had a panel of 4 women or 4 men, and they would come in and they would talk to our kids and give advice to them when they were 12. So they would say, okay, when I was 12, this is what I wish I would have known. And it was just 4, and it was 4 people and 15 boys or 15 girls. And so that got them in front of our clientele. I'm not asking for money. They get to see the mission in action. And those are the types of events that I'm talking about, those types of program events. So if they're invited to serve on a panel, or they're invited to do those type of things. Because then the best way to cultivate people is volunteer opportunities. Now, those are more on a larger scale. So if you have like a volunteer day, or you're having a build day or renovation day, or whatever those days are, invite them in to do that. And then lastly, but not least, is surveys. What I have learned is if you ask people for advice, advice leads to money. That is just something that I have learned along the way. And so send out surveys to your donors. Ask them their opinion on your marketing plan. Ask them your opinion on your board development plan, on your strategic plan. Allow them to have input on those things, and ask them. And that will lead to money, because you're not asking them for money, you're asking them for advice. And that oftentimes leads to money. So I just really want to stress that. Those are the top 6 ways that you really can cultivate donors, so that you're not making those cold calls. So whatever you do, don't make those cold calls. And then the next way, before you ask, you should create a plan for each individual donors. And the plan really should be strategic, and it should be customized. And you should focus on gathering information on your prospect, and not focus on providing information to your prospect. That's where what I'm talking about is really, you're going to be gathering information. You're going to be really honing in on and listening in on what would align with the potential donor, not going in and not saying, well, this is all the great things that we do, and you just go on and on about your organization. If you remember at the top, it is not about you. You're there to discover what the donor wants and what aligns with the donor. And so you have to ask good questions, but more importantly, you have to actively listen. And so I wanted to share some discovery questions that you can ask during a discovery visit. Now, this visit, again, can be face-to-face, or it could be on the phone. Again, you say, my name is Sabrina, and I just wanted to, I see that you've given before in the past, whether it's a $25 gift or $100 gift, the amount doesn't matter. I see that you've given before in the past, and I'm very interested to know what did you like, what interests you the most about our organization? You know, why did you give? And what did you hope to achieve by giving? What inspired your first gift to our organization? What causes are you passionate about? How can we get more involved? How can we get you more involved in our organization? So these are the questions that you can ask when you have that face-to-face discovery meeting, or when you're making that phone call. You have a plan for that donor. And the other, and when I say plan, people get all kind of scary, because they're like, oh my God, I have to create a plan. But it's really, really simple. The 5x5 cultivation plan, that customized plan for each person, basically you have 5 times that you want to touch that person within that year. So what are those 5 times? Am I going to pick up the phone and talk to them? That's 1. Am I going to ask them for a quick breakfast coffee meeting? That will be 2. Am I going to ask them to serve on a panel to meet my clientele or to give them advice? That will be 3. Am I going to invite them in for a volunteer event or to a special event? That will be 4. Am I going to send them and get advice from them on my survey? That will be 5. And so basically, it's like dating. I always say that fundraising is like dating. That you don't make a cold call. You don't ask someone to marry you on the first date. You court them, you cultivate them, and you go out on 5 dates. But you don't want to stand the date land forever. You don't want to be wooing them forever. Ultimately, you do have to move to the ask. And so that is the journey that you're taking people on when you are moving them towards the ask. So when you are at the stage where you're going to ask them for money, it is important that you practice, and then practice some more. Why is that important? It's because you want to feel natural when you're in front of the donor. You should have rehearsed the conversation. You should already know what talking points that you're going to say. People might have objections, and you want to know exactly how to address those objections. And you want to know the exact way you're going to frame your ask. And I'm going to give a little advice here. When you do your ask, it needs to be specific, and it needs to, will you consider a gift in the amount of, and be very specific. And it's ideal for 2 people from your organization to attend the ask, preferably the executive director and the board member, who has the relationship with the person. It needs to be the people, that has that relationship, that someone that they've met at least once, because at the end of the day, we have to remember that it is about relationships. And so you want to take the person that has the relationship with that prospective donor to the ask. So when you are making the ask, it should only be a face-to-face ask, whether that's via Zoom, now that we have COVID, or it's the physical face-to-face. When you are ready, it should be face-to-face. You should call the prospective donor and schedule a ask meeting. And it should not be a secret why you're coming to them. And the way you can do that is just say, you pick up the phone and you call and you say, I'd like to schedule a meeting with you. I would like to talk about how you can support our organization. So they already know that you're coming, and they know that you're going to be asking for money, and you let them know that you're going to be discussing an investment in your organization. So it's not a surprise, so that by the time you get there, their mindset is already in the right place. So I just really want to encourage you about that. And we talked about the ask having to be specific. So you don't want the donor to work for it. So it should be very clear, concise, and confident in the manner in which you make the ask. Don't go in there say, I would like for you, or would you have to be confident in the way that you speak and ask for the ask. So you need to, will you, or will you be willing to, and you have to invite the person to make on concrete steps. So you have to have a concrete call to action. So, and be very specific. So will you consider a gift of $500 to our nonprofit? It's so much better than saying, will you consider a contribution to our nonprofit, or I hope you would consider a contribution to our nonprofit. We struggle, and I really want you to help us out. That's not clear. It's not concise, and it's definitely not confident. So there is some anatomy to the ask, and you don't want your donor to have to work for that. So be confident when you go in. Put your fear aside. Remember, it is about the donor, and you be very confident, clear, and concise. Will you consider a gift of $500 to our nonprofit? That is the question that you're asking. And then you're going to shut up. And the reason why you're going to do that is because our culture as Americans, we hate silence. We want to feel the silence. And that's why sometimes extroverted salespeople and fundraisers do worse than introverts, actually. But often the most important, meaningful thing that you can do for your prospect is be silent. You don't want to feel the silence. You make your ask, you shut up, and you allow the silence, even if it feels awkward at first. It's called a strategic silence, and its effects feel almost magical. I've been on those asks, and I have done that. Would you consider a gift of $50,000 to support our capital campaign? Would you consider a gift of $500 to support our nonprofit? And just be silent. That's how silence feels. That is the magic of the strategic silence. I can't even do it right now during this presentation. I want to feel the silence. But it is a secret weapon when you're making the ask. Allow them time to sit in that silence, and they will let you know. Now, let's say if they sit in that silence and they say no. One of the big things that I say at this time is don't take it personal. You're going to move on to the next ask, because what does no really mean? It really means not this opportunity. So they're just saying to you, not at this time. They might be saying to you, not this amount. They may say, not until I talk to my family. It may be the project, not this project. It may be you haven't built that relationship as well as you thought you had, and it might be, no, not until I can trust you. Or it might be, no, not until I ask some questions. I have some questions and I want some more information. So don't take that no personal. And don't forget, you must thank your donors. If they do say yes, you have to thank your donors so they understand the impact they've made on your organization. It is important that you offer thanks so donors want to give again and again and again. The number one reasons donors don't give again is because they were not thanked properly. You have to extend gratitude and acknowledgement to the donor. And I would say, even as I sat in my CEO chair, one of the number one rules that I did, if I got a gift, I would try to respond with a handwritten note card within 24 hours of receiving the gift. That was the goal, and that is what I tried to do. And then let's say if I couldn't get that done, the easiest thing that you can do is pick up the phone and say thank you, and then follow up with a card. But the other thing that you can do is reach out to a board member and say, hey, this donor just gave, here's their cell phone number. Can you reach out to them and say thank you on behalf of the board? And then give yourself time to follow up with that handwritten thank you note. And so I just want to say, I've used this approach for over 15 years as a CEO of a nonprofit organization, and the board raised over $2 million each year. As when I left, our budget was $2.5 million each year, and they had a give or get policy of $5,000. And my organization is located along the Mexico-Texas border in the third poorest county in the United States. And I have clients, and I've helped different clients, and this is one of the Palm Valley Animal Society. I actually helped them with their special event, and using some of the tools and methods that I suggested to them. They raised the largest amount that they had with their event called Puppy Love, and they raised over $300,000. So this method and cultivation and really making people feel special, it works, and I encourage you to do that. So now that we've covered ask and you shall receive, I would like to have a further discussion with you. And so what I would like for you to do, if you're interested in going deeper into this and you want to book a free call with me, I encourage you to do so. You can do that by visiting the website that's listed here on this PowerPoint, and we can further our conversation around asking and fundraising. I really want to let people know about this. I'm doing a beginning process of launching a 6 weeks to sustainability course. I am looking for 5 people, 5, to do beta testing. Okay, and so this online course, it will help nonprofits figure out where their holes are in fundraising, whether it's their knowledge, their board, or their strategy, and I want to help them build a fundraising plan. And it's gonna be a 6-week course, as mentioned in the title. It's gonna have some weekly milestones. We're gonna be talking about engaging your board of directors, creating your case statement, how to tell your nonprofit story, developing a prospect list, and how to connect with your prospects and setting fundraising goals. Also, this course is going to really be centered around how to secure major gifts, even if you don't have a large staff, lots of times, and much board support. How to fundraise and get major gifts when you don't have experience planning and fundraising, and how to raise money if you don't have prior history with that, and how to develop a more systematic approach to deepening relationships with current donors, and how to secure their support. And it's going to be super focused and organized around a fundraising roadmap. And plus, it's going to have some free bonuses valued at $4,000, which we're going to be doing a stewardship plan, story collection forms, lifetime access to a group that we will be creating, and it's going to have an inner circle that's going to be valued at $3,000. The regular cost of this program is going to be $1,500, and I still have on this PowerPoint today, it's going to be $750. But for those on this webinar, it's actually going to be free, because again, I'm looking for people who are willing to invest the time. I'm talking about probably going live via Zoom, 1 hour a week for 6 weeks, and going over these topics, because I really want this course to really benefit and help those that are out there. So if you're interested in that at all, please let me know that you are interested in that, and I can get you on that list. Again, I'm just looking for 5 people for the beta testing, and it will be free. It will be a commitment of your time, at least an hour to an hour and a half weekly, as I teach the course. And then at the end, what I would need from you would be feedback, and of course, how to improve it, and if something needs to be removed or changed, and those things. So let me know about that. Now we're getting to the Q&A, and I see there's some questions here, and we're going to start with the first one. So Felipe, how do you modify this process, if at all, when trying to get invited to submit a grant or sponsor proposal to a company or foundation? You often already know what their funding priorities are. What tweaks go into that fundraising approach? Well, I always say corporations and foundations are run by people, right? And so people give to people, and it's the same process. You have to find out you have to connect with the people, and you have to cultivate the people who are in charge of that corporation or that foundation. I will say this, I do a segment called Sipping Tea with Sabrina, and my first interviewee was from this marketing person from Magic Valley Electric Co-op. And he said one of his pet peeves were he hates for people to come in and ask for a sponsorship of money, and he's never met them. He doesn't know anything about the organization. They never even took the time to sit down and introduce themselves or provide any information. And the first time that they see them, they're asking for money. Well, basically what he's saying is he hates cold calls. If you're a new organization, or if you're an organization, period, and you've never received money from this corporation, then find out who the marketing person is, or the person who's in charge of the money, and make sure you're going to introduce yourself. Let them know a little bit about your organization. Let them know what it is that you're doing, and lead up to that ask. If you're talking about like your Walmarts or your Targets or your Staples, one of the things that I would do is I particularly would go in and introduce myself to the store managers there, because a lot of times the applications are online. However, those store managers have influence over who can get those grants. And so if you go in and introduce yourself, and they know who you are, and you let them know, hey, I'm going to be applying, and it asks for store manager feedback or whatever it is, they know your application is there, and they will be willing to support those applications. I had got so good with my relationship with Staples. only the store manager could submit the application. And so basically I would go in and he would put me at his computer and give me his password, and I would fill out the application and submit it on his behalf. And so it's still just about building those relationships. And the same thing with the foundations. One of the key to getting foundation grants is I would go to GuideStar, of course, and I would look and see who served on those board of directors, and then I would email that list out to my board members or my advisory board, and I would say, do you know anybody on this foundation committee or on this foundation board? And oftentimes they did, and if they did, then they would reach out and on the organization behalf, and they would schedule a tour. I've had many of foundation board members come in for tours of our organization. And then I would let them know on that tour that we would be applying to the foundation, and this is what that we will be looking at. And so again, it's really about relationships. It's about building those relationships. And so not necessarily tweaking it, but you would just find out who you need to build the relationship with, whether it's the corporation or the foundation. So that's how I would answer that. Cool. I got a lot of people saying they want to do the beta. I'm so happy about that. As a matter of fact, as far as the beta is concerned, since it's only going to be 5 people, I'm going to ask, once we identify who those 5 people are, and look like we might have that here. I am going to save this chat so I know who it is. I'm going to let you determine when we're going to meet. But whatever day we decide, we're going to stay consistent with that day and that time, and we're going to do it for 6 weeks, and we'll go from there. So does anybody else have any questions at this time around the content or anything like that? I'm so excited. You guys just don't know how excited I am about finding the people for this beta. I've been trying to actually process this and get this done for a while here. It's actually, I'm speaking to y'all about fear, and it's actually my own fear of jumping out there and getting this done. But I would like to thank you for joining today. And if you're not following me on social media, these are my social media handles, and I really encourage you to do that. And I also have a group called Nonprofit Professional Exchange. And if you so choose, you can join that group. And actually, that is all that I have for you today. Let me check the chat just one more time to see if there's any questions there. And if not, one more coming in. Let's see what we got here. So I have a question here. Let's see what it says. Sabrina, when making an ask and prospecting the potential donor, do you usually ask for more than you think they might be able to donate? So that's a good question, Louise. So in the framework for actually going from identifying a donor to making the ask, there's also the phase where you do the discovery and where you get to know the donor. And of course, it's asking the donor questions, but it's also learning, for lack of a better word, it might be a peer review, like asking board members, do you know anything about this person? A lot of times what you can do also is a wealth screening. If your organization chooses to do that, and you can submit a list of names, and that names, and then you'll get back a screening like this person is an A or B or C or D. And basically what it's saying, like if they're A, based on all the information that's out there on the internet, properties they own, the this that they own, they're valued at $1 million, or they're valued at $200,000. You can actually do that for each donor, or you can do it the good old-fashioned way and ask those around you, you know, what do you know about this person? What do you know? Because the worst thing that you can do is leave money on the table. I've been in those ask meetings where I've asked for, let's say if I ask for $50,000 and an immediate answer is yes, then I know I've asked for too little. And that's the worst feeling as a fundraiser that you can have, because you know you left money on the table. But hey, it happens. But again, it can be as informal as having your board members and different people knowing a little bit about that person and having that conversation, to formally actually doing a wealth screening. So, and Felipe says to Luis's question, I've learned that you need to balance a couple of things: affinity with interest in your organization, or that cause and capacity to make a gift. That is true, because identifying it, do they have the ability and then the capability? Are they aligned with your mission and what you want to do? And that's what the discovery process is. And that's why you go into these discovery meetings asking these questions, because just because they have money doesn't mean that they align with the values of your organization. That might not be their passion. And so that's really key. So I really want to say thank you, everyone. And it's really been a very good presentation on I think so. You can let me know either way, but it is 12:38, and I promise 30, no more than 40 minutes. And that's all the input that I have, unless anybody else has any questions. And I don't see any in the chat. So with that, I will be ending this webinar, and I will be reaching out to those who said that they wanted to do the beta test and sharing more details on that. I will ask that you give me until probably September, because, and this is the last thing I'm going to say, because I am developing a Build a Thriving Nonprofit Summit. I am currently actually building the website for it. It's going to be a free summit. The summit is going to be October the 27th through the 30th, 4 days, 12 speakers from across the United States on fundraising, board development, and marketing your nonprofit. And so that I will really encourage you to attend as well. And there's going to be more information out there about that. And then sometime in September, I'll be sending the information about the course. So thank y'all so very much. It is busy. It's a busy time. But again, the whole goal is to support my nonprofit family. So y'all have a blessed day, and thank you for joining. Bye-bye.